Central Mafia. Glad that you can join us on another beautiful Thursday here in Indiana for another live stream for the Central Mafia user group. So happy to have you here and happy about the topics that we're gonna cover today. Like good old times, I am here by myself. If you don't know me, my name is Juan Mack. I am the facilitator for the Central Mafia, and I also work for an MSP over here in Jasper, Indiana, called Matrix Integration. If it's your first time with the Central Mafia looking or watching our live stream, we are an MSP community. So we have over 500 members that this community is basically built by MSPs for MSPs. So we take all of your feedback, and our mission is to bring MSPs together through education. So what we do is we have a set of live streams like this one. We have them every other week. And in between what we have is, or we have open mics. So the live streams, the purpose is to continue to bring education to you guys. We have special guests throughout the year, and the open mics are opportunities for you guys just to jump in and we'll just chat. And we had one last week. So shout out to Josh Campbell. He was the only one who joined, and it was amazing. So we were just geeking out. He shared his screen. He was showing me all the cool dashboards that he is building. Then we started talking about Claude, and he ended up like sending me the how-to on like how to do all the things that he is doing. So how awesome is that? So MSPs just collaborating. So those are the things that you can find out on these sessions and also on the open mics. And the other thing that we do is we have meetups. So we meet 4 times a year, 2 times in Burr Ridge, Illinois for our North Central region partners, and then 2 times in Anaheim. And we have those events coming up. If you want to sign up, that's our website, centralmafiaug.com. Just go there and you have the links to register for any of those events. So on September 17th will be our Burr Ridge or Chicago meetup, and then October 8th will be our Anaheim meetup. So the way we do is we have a nice reception the day before the pre-day networking event. We're bringing cornhole back to Chicago, and for Anaheim, we are going to see some fireworks. We're going to see the Disney fireworks. So pretty excited about that. And then the next day we start, we'll start with our general session, and we'll continue with education throughout the day. It's a great opportunity to learn, meet other MSPs, expand your network, and walk out of there with actionable items. If you go to our website, you can also follow us on LinkedIn. If you want to keep up to date with all the Central Mafia happenings. And also, you can follow us on Facebook. So we have our Facebook page, and this is being streamed into Facebook right now, and also LinkedIn. And then also we have our Facebook group, and that is a great way to post questions to the community, find answers, from the Central Mafia community. So great ways to stay connected and keep the conversations going. This live stream, as all of our live streams, get recorded into YouTube. So if you find the information in here valuable and you want to share it with any of your colleagues or partners, just go to our YouTube page and you can just watch previous ones, or just, like I said, just get this one and share it with your team. So enough of that, because we have a lot to cover. And today we have with us Victor Lopez from FlexPoint, and we are going to be talking about keeping our, I call it keeping our house clean. Maybe Victor can, correct me there when we start covering the topics, but all the things that we do in our business, like we focus on the front end for the tickets, projects, sales, but let's look a little bit on the back end. So that we're going to be talking a little bit about that, automating, keeping it clean, and how we can make it efficient. So like I said, with us we have Victor Lopez, who is the founder and CEO of FlexPoint, which is an accounts receivable and payments platform for MSPs. Before he was with FlexPoint, Victor was a principal at Blue Owl Capital, which is a $2 billion investment firm. But he also began his career as a private equity M&A attorney over in New York, which I think he's still in New York. We'll talk a little bit about that. But with that, let's go ahead and bring Victor into the stage. And now we cannot see you. We couldn't hear you earlier, or you were hearing me, and now I don't see
So,
you.
this is what happens when we, this is with our technical difficulties. We can't get
That's
over
what
our
happens
technical
when we
difficulties.
just start pressing buttons to see stuff works.
Oh boy. Well, I'm here. It sounds like you can hear me. I think let me try and come back.
I can keep talking. So for those of you, now we're going to listen to Victor here in a little bit when he joins back, but everything that he will cover.
All right.
Right, you can,
All right, here we go.
there he is.
Sorry, Juan. We figured it out. So we figured it out. It's you know, who would have thought that we're in the technology business, or at least one of us is in the technology business. It takes us this long to figure out how to get on a live stream.
Yes, when stuff like that happens here, I tell people it's like that's what we have jobs.
Yeah. Time to call the IT guys because we're having some challenges here. But I'm glad I'm here now. I'm excited to be here. Sound works, video works. We're all here.
In the comments, anybody knows an MSP?
Yeah, exactly.
The running joke.
That's
what we have jobs, so we can fix technology. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Absolutely.
Stuff like
absolutely.
This didn't happen, then they wouldn't call it.
Exactly. The difficulties of technology these days, but all good. Here I am.
Yes. So well, thank you for joining. Of course, we're going to be talking today about, I call it keeping our house clean, but can you like give us a better description of that?
Yeah, no, I think keeping our house clean is a great analogy, because at the end of the day, for us who run a business or part of a business, a lot of it resembles our home, right? It's like we spend so much time working that it's a little bit of it. But yeah, I think what the best way to describe it, right? So I think from my standpoint and sort of what we like to talk about and really get the conversation going on is, for MSPs and IT businesses generally, there's such a focus, and I think rightly so, there's such a big focus on service delivery, making sure you're providing the best service when it comes to technology, IT services, and everything that all ranges from everything from like cybersecurity over to just general help desk. But what we've seen is, so many of these businesses, and really what the MSP has evolved into, have become significant businesses, right? Like now we talk about private equity being involved in the MSP world. 10, 15 years ago, I think that was very, very rare. And so as a result, what we find, and I always use the analogy of the accidental business owner, right? So like most MSP owners that you talk to, or anyone that's involved in the MSP world, it's this concept of the accidental business owner, folks that very, very good at fixing problems, fixing when the video doesn't work or the sound's not working, they jump in and are able to fix it. And then they wake up one day and they're like, wow, I have these 10 people, these 10 businesses that I keep solving these problems for. I guess I have a business now. And so what they find is their house, to keep on the analogy, is very dirty. And so what I mean by that is, their financials are all over the place if they're tracking it. For the most part, they're doing, cash-based accounting. They're invoicing maybe sometimes on time, but the actual collection of the money, that's kind of a secondary thing, right? It's like you push out the invoice, and whether you get the money or not, it doesn't really become relevant until you need money. And so it's an issue that we see come up often. But it's for us, for me specifically, but as a business FlexPoint, we're always focused on starting the conversation around, hey guys, like, you have these great businesses, you're doing a great job on the service delivery side of things. Take a little bit of time to remove yourself from the business and start thinking about the business more strategically in terms of the back office and the greater house, as we like to call it.
On your experience, because you mentioned, like, like when you business owners that start, they start their business, right, and then they start providing all the services. They are wearing multiple hats. They're doing the
Mm-hmm.
sales, they're doing the technical work, they
Mm-hmm.
or orchestrating the technical work, right? So they're wearing
Yeah.
all these things. It's most of it is all client delivery. That engagement with the client, make sure that they're happy, and that takes all day,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes more. So have you found in your experience, like, that all that back office stuff is like, oh my God, that is my 9 o'clock at night, the
Yeah.
work that I
It's
have
the
to
it's
go
the
to
weekend job.
work, the weekend
Yeah.
job, right?
Exactly. It's the weekend. Yeah. I always talk about, sometimes people ask like, oh, what does FlexPoint do? And it's like, yeah, here's this is software and this is what it does. But what do we actually do? Is we help those business owners go to their kids' baseball game on a Saturday instead of spending their time, on all the things they couldn't handle during the week, right? Because like they have to sleep sometimes, and so generally what we find is all these other things, again, clean the house, ends up happening whenever there is any time to do it. That's generally on the weekends, that's generally late at night. And it's not always the owner. Sometimes it's an office manager who has 10 other things to do. And so generally, yeah, we always say it's the things that no one generally wants to be doing, and when they do them, it's generally at the worst times.
Yeah. So for those out there that are still, managing all these things, and going on the weekends, and trying to figure out, like, mostly, I'm guessing, is trying to catch up more than
Yeah.
figuring out. It's more trying to catch up. Like, what be the top three things that they should uh, have on their plate? Like, what are the most three important things that they should do, like, so they actually have a plan, so instead of
Yeah.
being reactive, right, being proactive on all the things they're doing from that perspective.
Yeah. So I actually would take a step back. So I think generally what we find is there these periods of time or these moments in time that require the MSP owner to actually think about this part of the business. And so generally those categories fall into situations like they're starting to think about what's next for them. So whether that means they're getting to the age where they'd like to retire, right? Most of an MSP owner's, net worth, everything, really, their livelihood is tied to their business generally. And so generally what happens is you have these inflection points. So whether the owner's thinking about, well, what's next? I'd like to retire. I'd like to do something else in life. So that's one big inflection point when the owner starts to think about what's next. Is it retirement? Is it selling the business? Is it potentially, winding down the business because maybe there's not significant amount of business for someone to take on. So that's generally one of the big inflection points. There's other types of inflection points that we find too, right? So we have situations where the owner's now potentially more opportunistic. He has a friend in a peer group, or a competitor, a friendly competitor in the region who is going through that same process, and now they're thinking about, well, maybe we should combine our businesses to build something bigger. So these are generally categories of inflection points that we find force the owner to think about this part of their business. And so generally in those situations, what happens is they now see something that, like anything that you haven't paid attention to for a very long time, they now see something that requires a lot of attention. And so what we like to tell everyone, and when we have these conversations with folks, is it's always around, don't wait for there to be, an inflection point. Don't wait for there to be a situation where all of a sudden, you're 65 years old and you've been doing this for 30 years, and all of a sudden you're thinking about, okay, so now what do I do? Like, how am I gonna, like, don't wait until that point. And if that's you now, you're listening to this and you're thinking about this now, well, there's things you can do to help. But like generally, we like to think, we like to advise, like, be a little bit more proactive. And so I know this because I deal with this myself. It's one thing to be like, hey, like, Juan, you should be more proactive about, thinking about all these things. You should sit down. It's easier said than done, right? Like, everyone's super busy. Everyone has a lot of things to do, and to like set aside the time to actually think about this more strategically is not very easy. And so what we always think about is, or what we always tell folks who come to us for these thoughts is really, you should set up some type of cadence where you sit down, even if it's an hour, right? Just to start, even if it's an hour, where you spend that hour just looking at the business, thinking about the business from the standpoint of, instead of working in the business, working on the business. And so we see this in all types, right? We serve hundreds and hundreds of MSPs. And so we see this in all types, everything from like very large, very sophisticated ones who have multiple people in this part of their business to, owner operators who are doing this themselves. And so what we see to be most successful is there's either a monthly operational cadence where someone, so whether it's the owner or the people responsible, sit down and actually think about the business from this perspective. And so I think to answer your question, I think it first and foremost, it's important to get into a operational cadence where you're not doing this in a reactive way, right? Like, you're not going to see like, okay, when's the last time we collected, what does our AR look like, or what does our days sales outstanding look like? Because we're running low on cash. Like, that should never be the situation you should be in, right? It's easier said than done. But I think it requires a proactive routine. I think an operational cadence, once a month at a minimum. I think depending on the size and sort of complexity of the organization, that's where it gets to be different. But at least once a month, where someone is sitting down and looking at the main the primary metrics, at least in terms of sort of making sure that cash flow is where it needs to be. Right? And so, like, the main things are just looking at outstanding AR balances, like who is outstanding beyond 90 days, who's outstanding beyond 60 days, where are you beyond 30 days. So I think we put out some content on this, but I think the last stat we saw was on average, it's about 45 days is the average DSO for an MSP. And so what that means is from when the invoice was sent out to the client to when payment was actually received, on average, it's about 45 days, which, again, when you compare it to industries like construction, for example, it's like 90 plus days. It seems good, but the reality is, for most MSPs, especially managed service, it's a recurring, service. Your client knows what they're paying for generally every month. You're billing them pretty similarly every month. There isn't a ton of variability. So the fact that it takes 45 days, I think that's more of a process problem, which we can talk about. But yeah, that's generally what we see the focus on, and sort of that operational cadence that we recommend.
Yeah, I think it's no different than as our different vendors also expect that from us, because we're getting products to deliver those solutions to our clients, and same thing. They're all these subscription based, and every single month, right,
Mm-hmm.
there is that charge, and there needs to be that proper cash flow, right, to cover all those, plus on
Yeah.
top of all the operating expenses that as a business can
Yeah.
incur.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's number one thing is, right, like, try to get as long a terms as you can from your vendors. But like, when it comes to like subscription based things, it's generally not super easy, right? Sometimes you can get 15 days, maybe 30 days, depending on your relationship, especially with like the big distributors. But if you're if you're required to pay your vendors within 15 days and you're giving your clients 30-day net terms, that's a problem. Right? And frankly, personally, this is coming from me, again, it's my personal opinion. I think it's crazy for MSPs to give their clients net terms. Like, we see 15-day net terms all the time. I mean, we're not talking about, this isn't a distribution business where you're selling physical things, right? So it's like, this is a service-based business. And so we highly discourage net terms, but I mean, we see the reasons for it all the time, right? It's like, well, we've been with them for 30 plus years, they've been a great client. And so that's just what they need. But it's ultimately you're the one that's providing the 15-day interest-free loan there.
Yeah. So you mentioned cadence, and now we live in a world of automation and AI. A lot of the different products, including FlexPoint, they put in that layer into their solution. I remember last year, was that Secure or Connect? I was talking to Sean, was in a panel, and one of the things that I mentioned to the group is when vendors come over and say, hey, we incorporated AI. The follow-up question is like, oh, what is AI? What does AI mean to you, and what are you're providing it? And even in-house, as we develop a lot of things, we use AI, pretty loose. And sometimes there's a difference between what's automation, right, which is a lot of times built into platforms, and also in AI. So from that perspective, like looking now at all the things that we can accomplish on the back end, right, for to make sure that the business is operating as smooth as possible, and bring talking about that cadence, how we can minimize the time me as an owner can invest or spend on that cadence. What have you seen there, and let's use an example as FlexPoint, right? So what are you guys offering to help that?
Yeah. So I think so like first and foremost, I'm very much a believer that AI, generative AI, is already, but will transform everything about everything. So not just MSPs and service delivery, but every aspect of the way we interact with the physical world. And it's so I think some people will say like, well, there's certain things that AI is not going to impact. I was talking to someone recently, and they're saying like, oh yeah, like what about like when you go check into a hotel, like how's AI going to make that experience different? It's like, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like today, maybe not, but down the line, 5-10 years from now, it's very different. And so I think the MSP market specifically is probably top 5 in terms of where AI is going to have the biggest impact. So Bain Consulting, very, very large consulting firm, very much at the forefront of implementation of AI in the enterprise. I don't know if you've seen this, but like one of the stats that's come out, especially in the first like 2 years of the explosion of like OpenAI and then Anthropic, was that the people that were making the most money off of AI weren't actually the people using it. It's the people, these large consulting firms that were, implementing or showing people how to use it. And so Bain, has been super big beneficiary of the AI boom, just because they're essentially teaching the enterprise how to use it. And so they came out with a report not too long ago where essentially they narrowed down the different types of knowledge-based workers that were going to have the largest impact from generative AI. And number 3 on the list was IT services. So it's I think number 2 was like legal services, number 3 was IT services. And this is like measured on the number of hours that could be reduced with generative AI for these knowledge-based work. Number 1 on the list was financial and operations, so like back office type tasks. And so I think very, very broadly, I think the IT services MSP market is going to be one of the biggest markets impacted. We're already seeing this, right? Like there's a new vendor every day who does, ticket triaging, automated, AI, whatever. And so there's plenty of those out there. But so from our standpoint, again, because of what we do and sort of what our focal point is again, every MSP should absolutely be using AI, whether it's internally, tools like Claude, Microsoft site, whatever, and many of these other tools in service delivery. But I think and it's very natural, I think, just given MSPs are technical people who like to kind of play with the tools and get involved with them. But I think an area that we don't want to sleep on is everything else, the rest of the house, as we like to say. And so I'll give you some examples. So for us, we were very intentional about, our software, it automates getting you paid. That's basically what we do. We help you get paid faster. That's what we do at the end of the day. And so that's done through a series of automations. And then at the end of the day, you have payment processing. And so when it came to AI, where we were seeing the pull from our customers was not around things like chatbots that will say, hey, whatever, here's some analytics around how late your payments is or whatever. That's important, but not as important in the realm of where AI can have an impact. But what we were finding was in conversations with our customers and just the MSPs generally, there's all these jobs that are done in the operations, the back office of an MSP that again are the job of a business owner who doesn't want to be doing it, or an office manager who has 5 other jobs. And so we tried to distill those jobs down into areas where a human is currently involved. But when you think about, are you familiar with the concept of zone of genius, Juan? So there's this concept where it's the things that you're really good at, but the things that you also want to be doing. So that's your zone of genius. It's you're very good at it, but you also want to be doing. Because a lot of us are very good at things that we don't want to be doing. That's not our zone of genius. And there's a lot of things, that we don't like to do and we're not very good at, so we should stay away. So what we tried to focus on was these areas that are not the zone of genius of an MSP. So definitely not ticket triaging, because that's you want to talk about triaging of tickets and how you use AI and the most exciting technology there. And so we tried to narrow down these different functions within the back office of an MSP where the person doing it, either they're not very good at it or they just don't want to be doing it. It's just this kind of thing. And so we narrowed it down to where outreach when it comes to clients not paying on time. So whether that's sending an email that is written specifically for your VIP client who's been with you for 20 years, and if you say the wrong thing, they're going to get really mad and they're going to tell your boss and you're going to get in trouble. And so not only that, but the whole job of going through a list every week and picking up the phone and realizing, okay, it's time I call Juan. He hasn't paid that invoice. I know he's going to pay it, but I know he needs me to call him. So we kind of focused in on those 2 areas because we saw nobody wants to be doing these, but these are highly, highly critical tasks to getting paid. And so in leveraging AI versus just pure automation, what we saw AI is perfect for this because one, AI can ingest a ton of data around your clients, your agreements, the history they have with you, how often they pay you on time, how often they don't pay you on time, what they buy from you, right? And you can use all this data to compose those emails, right? And take it away from the human to be okay, I got to be really careful walking on eggshells. Hey, here's a AI generated email that sounds very similar to probably what you would say that's going to follow up with this client. So that's one thing that we use AI for. But the other big thing, and this is all our AR agents that we've released. The other thing is we have also been able to use, voice AI is very, very advanced. I don't know how much you've played around with it, but it's extremely advanced. The models are extremely good at being able to, use voice AI to accomplish a lot of things. And so what we've done is actually have an agent who will call on your behalf. It will call your clients. it will have a conversation with your clients. You can tell it, hey, like, what are you calling me about? Who are you? And it'll tell you, I'm calling on you on behalf of, Matrix Integration. You have several invoices outstanding. What's the invoice about? Read you the line items, tell you what it is. And what we find is that AI is very, very good at doing these tasks because they're super unsexy. They're very boring things that a human doesn't want to do. And so that's kind of like our big focal point is like we're not here to take anyone's job, in the sense that like we're not going to take anyone's job that wants to be doing that job. You know what I mean? It's like things that humans don't want to be doing and really shouldn't be doing. That's where we're looking to leverage AI and really have an impact.
Exactly. What you're doing is augmenting that team, that person, to focus on those things like you said, where they usually the
100%. Yeah.
Son of genius. I capture that. Over here we call it delegate, elevate.
Okay. Yeah.
You like to do the things that you don't, you either will automate or get rid of or give it to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Similar concept. Exactly.
Yeah.
Similar concept.
My zone of genius. I'm gonna, the next time I talk about it, like I'm in my zone of genius. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
But the other thing is it's that human factor, right? So like I said, calling somebody that's because their invoice is past due is not a easy conversation with anybody. I think it takes a special person to probably be fluent and pick up the phone and have the conversation, and also the receiving end, to and be able to understand personalities.
Well, that's honestly, that's one of the things that's been super interesting is like I forget to pay things all the time, right? Like we all forget to pay things. Like it's not that we're like intentionally not paying things. We forget things. Like I always tell a story. So like I live in a small town, like a suburb of New York City, and we have the way we get billed for water is the most archaic way you could possibly think. It's one bill that comes in the mail once a quarter, and the only way to pay is either you send them a check, which I think you can mail it, or you could drop it off at like the town office, whatever, or you can go onto a website to pay. And I'm going to date myself here, but it's a website that looks like it was built on GeoCities. Remember GeoCities one, like the Yahoo GeoCities website? So it looks like it's straight out of 1995, and I don't feel like secure in putting my credit card in there, and so I forget to pay it. And so the story is, this happened like a year ago. My wife calls me and she's like, "Why are they shutting off our water?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "It says you haven't paid the bill in like over a year." And I go to see it. You'd think it's like thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's like $600. And again, it's not because I didn't have the money, and it's not because I didn't want to pay it. It's just like they made it so hard to actually pay them. And so that's the thing. It's like when you make it really difficult for your clients to pay you, they're not going to pay you. And so even something as simple as like if my town would have used a voice AI caller to just call me and say, "Hey, Victor, you haven't paid your water bill in like 6 months," I'm going to be embarrassed, because I was embarrassed when my wife told me they shut off the water. I'm probably embarrassed telling you the story, but I would have paid it. Right. Like, and it's like, it would have been so easy. And now I don't have this person in the town who had to call me and like, to go through that whole thing. But anyway, it's one of those things where you're absolutely right. It's like, nobody wants to be doing that. It's awkward for everyone. And so the more we can get away from having to have those conversations and let the robots do it, I think the better off we're all going to be.
Exactly. And then that person, like when we talk about that human, that person can actually focus more on, hey, so like the balance sheet, it's accurate.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure that all of our orders up to make sure we can now also pay our vendors. Right.
Yeah.
That we have that good cash flow.
Or if it's the owner, like focus on everything else, right? Like there's a million things they could be doing.
Correct. And with that, I want to go back to what your what the purpose of FlexPoint is to get paid faster. So because earlier we were talking about the DSO, right? That those 45 days, you want to make sure that you stay within that time frame, right? Or even reduce it. If we can reduce it even better,
reduce it. Yeah, 45 days. don't get me wrong. 45 days is the average. I'm not saying that's good. I think MSP's DSO should be sub 10 days. I mean, again, think about it. Like, why should your clients take more than 10 days to pay?
Oh, I forget.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. There's no good reason.
Way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no good reason why, and again, I think that's why. I mean, that's why we exist. I think if MSPs were better at getting paid on time, then there wouldn't be a need for something like FlexPoint. But at the end of the day, I think it's when you make it difficult for your clients to pay you, they're not going to pay you.
Yeah. What's the for those out there like kind of implementing these things, like, okay, we can automatically send out the invoices. We have a link for them to, pay and go to a pay portal to do that. I know some, they can set up, just the recurring automatic withdrawal for those. For those that are evaluating those things, can you explain, like, benefits, pros and cons? What's the best approach?
Yeah. So going back to what I was saying about, like, yeah, average might be 45 days, but really everyone should be, sub 10. And so one of the biggest levers for accelerating cash flow for MSPs that we see is the use of autopay. And the reason why is because managed services is very much, a subscription type service, right? It's very similar every month. You bill typically on the same time every month. And so one of the biggest levers that we see in accelerating cash flow is getting clients onto autopay. And so it really depends on the maturity and sort of the complexity of the MSP themselves. But at the more mature spectrum of sort of where this all sits, we see folks that have their agreements set up in their PSA. They have their agreements set up for their managed service, right? So it's like the client is on managed service plan, platinum, or whatever they want to call it. And so all those agreements get billed at the same time every month. And then in FlexPoint, you can set up auto pay based on that agreement. So every client that is set to your platinum managed service agreement will automatically get billed for their managed services for that month on the same date. And so I think that's one of the biggest levers, is just the automation that comes with actually getting your clients on autopay. I've heard every excuse for why you can't get your clients on autopay, right? It's like, oh, they don't like to pay their invoices without knowing what's on them. It's like, well, it's the same thing it was last month and the month before that, because we're separating between, like, your managed services and I bought 2 laptops from you this month, and so that's a separate bill. So that's separate. You can bill it separately. And so what we find is a lot of the hesitancy that MSP owners and just MSPs have with autopay is not always founded on, it's not always, like, there isn't really a foundation based in reality. And so I think we all think of our clients as, like, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do this. But when you ask them, the convenience of not having to ingest this invoice, write a check to you, or figure out a way to, like, call you and give you a credit card. Because if you ask an MSP, how are you getting paid? It's like, oh, well, send me the check, or sometimes you drop off a bag of money and that's it, right? So I think sometimes we underestimate the convenience factor for the client. So it's like they don't want to be dealing with this every month. It's like they know they're paying you for what essentially is a subscription. And so that, I think that's one of the biggest levers. Some of the other ones we see are obviously like faster payments. So, ACH typically is something that, takes a long time with us. You have access to funds same day, and then, you have other, automations. But I think the big thing is we connect to all the tools that MSPs use. So whether it's PSA, so whether it's ConnectWise, whether it's Halo, whether it's Autotask, like, we support all of them. And then we also connect to the core sort of accounting software. So most MSPs are on QuickBooks, but you have some folks who are on, like, Sage or NetSuite or, like, Xero. And so we bring those all together, make it super easy to use, and provide a very a very easy to pay experience for the clients, which I think is a big part of it.
I want to go back to earlier we talked. Yeah, you mentioned like and we're talking about make sure that the business looks good, right? And you talk about owners wanted to exit, wanted to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they will look at private equity.
Mm-hmm.
How important it is to have all that aligned and under control when somebody's thinking either exiting, selling, getting purchased.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me take you back to so prior to FlexPoint. I think you mentioned this. I was a principal
Mhm.
at a place called Blue Owl Capital. It's a $200 billion investment firm. And then before that, an attorney. I did private equity M&A deals. And so over the course of my career, 10 plus years across these things, I saw a lot of businesses get bought and sold. And we didn't just invest in the MSPs. We invested in all types of business, service type business. But the number one thing, the number one factor that derailed a deal or made the purchase price get renegotiated or essentially just blew up the transaction and made it not happen was bad financials. And so that showed up in a lot of different places. Often the case where the business owner had a very different understanding of the financial position of their business versus the reality. Once you start to look at the actual financials, and you see, hey, Joe runs his business, and why does he have a boat that has to be run through the business? Like, why is there a boat that's being used in the delivery of managed services? The other big one for MSPs specifically was miscategorization of service COGS, so cost of goods sold. So a lot of MSPs, when they're doing their financials, they don't put the labor expense, so the salaries of their techs, as service delivery COGS, so cost of goods sold. They just put it as an expense below the line. And so we won't go into the dirty details of it, but what that means is you have an MSP who says, I have a gross margin of 60, 70%. And to an investor or potential person who's going to acquire this business, it's like, wow, 67%, that's amazing. That's like SaaS margins. But then you find that all of the salaries of their techs are not being classified as service costs. And so their gross margin is inflated. The reality is their gross margin is closer to 30%, very different profile for a business. And all of a sudden, what you thought was worth, $2 million is actually worth a quarter of that. And so that's the thing. I think the number one thing I always say is have a really good accountant. There's a difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper will do your books and make sure that things are done at the end of the month. That's not what an accountant does. An accountant can sit with you, have very strategic conversations. They're not going to cost you that much more than a bookkeeper, frankly. So it's worth having an accountant. But having an accountant, especially early on in the life cycle of the business, will have an exponential impact on what that business is going to be valued. So things like making sure you're categorizing the right, the text, right? But things like separating managed service revenue from like hardware resale revenue. Like these are things that any financial buyer or anyone that's going to value your business is going to be looking at on day one. And if you don't have that, that's sort of that minimum viable standpoint. If you don't have that, it's going to take you months and months of hard work and time to clean up your books and get to a place where it represents that. And it's probably not going to look in the way that you want it because you weren't managing your business to those numbers. You're managing it to a very different type of business.
I feel like we should have like a panel in here and just bring you in and talk about like having everything everything ready. A couple of weeks ago, we talked to Kathy, and she was talking like what happens after the acquisition, right? So
Yeah.
we kind of like, okay, we have the whole history, like what to do before, what happens.
Honestly, like the what to do before is like I unfortunately, and I have a ton of friends who are MSPs, and unfortunately, they usually come to me too late, and it's like the situations where like, hey, I'm talking to so and so, and they're thinking about buying a business, and it's like, okay, but like, and so I think there's a lot of money being left on the table by MSPs. I think if there's a little bit more focus and like from day one having that accountant who can be your advisor, trusted advisor, and just have a little bit better financials. I think that would make a whole bigger impact.
Yep. Well, we have got there. Our facilitator says, "Hey, we're almost running out of
Yeah,
time."
I told you I'll talk forever if you let me. So
This has been
someone's got to wave the flag.
yeah, this has been very, very interesting, and learned quite a bit. Shout out to Juan out there. You mentioned the boat. MSPs having having a boat.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna mention the
Ask
jet.
Juan about the boat that he had with his MSP. That's quite the story.
Yeah, we always make the joke about the jet. It's like
Yeah.
makers. We need to
Well,
go
I'm
back.
taking a step. I'm taking it a step
Yeah.
down, right? It's the jet. What's wow? You have a jet? Wow. Okay, invite me next time.
And so, all right. So, are we gonna see you in Chicago?
I
Or
hope so. If you're not, if it's not me, it's actually my birthday on September 17th. So I'm gonna have to see if I can get away. If not, we'll have someone who is well suited to be there.
and now you told us, and if you're there, we'll make sure that you get
Yeah,
acknowledged.
exactly. See, exactly. The cat's out of the bag, but yeah, but we'll definitely be there.
Perfect. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions or wants to continue this conversation, definitely we'll see you just we'll see you there, and also on our next one, which is will be in Anaheim. So yeah, we're looking forward to meeting with you. I won't be in Chicago. I'll be in the one in Anaheim. So maybe we'll see you there. We'll see fireworks together. So if you want to talk to Victor or any of our partners or any of our members, make sure that if you want to talk to Victor, that's how you connect with him.
Yeah.
And that's a zero,
That's
right?
a zero. Unfortunately,
Yes.
Victor Lopez is a pretty common name, and
Yeah.
so it wasn't available when I signed up with LinkedIn,
Yeah.
5-10 years ago. And so I became creative and I added a zero
Yeah.
instead of an O.
Yeah. I want to mention that so that will connect to the right Victor.
Yeah.
Uh, and to sign up for all of our events, just head out to our website, centralmafiaug.com. Stay up to date with LinkedIn. Follow us on Facebook. That's where all the information goes to. And Victor, thank you so much. Anything that we left out? Anything else that you want to add before we
No,
wrap up?
I'm always I will say I'm always open to chatting about any of this stuff with anyone. So if I don't have the answers, I probably have someone who I know who can give you the answers. So if you're going through one of those situations where like, hey, I need to think about what I'm going to do in the next 5 years, or like, is it time to retire? Is it time to exit? Happy to chat. I have no vested interest in it. I'm not one of the private equity firms trying to buy you. So
Well, thank you so much for joining. This is very insightful. Always learning something. Zone of genius. That's what I'm walking.
zone of genius. Take
Everything
away.
else, I am
Yeah.
walking out with that. That will be
All
my new
right.
term. So,
Awesome.
all right. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll see you in our next live stream and in our meetup September 17th and October 8th. So, thanks, Victor, again.
Thank you.
And thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Bye.
Talk